We're live. Wendy, I'm putting you in the corner because you're down a little bit. So
that's right. Yeah, that's where I belong.
I bet that never happened to you in school. You just seem like a rule follower.
I was.
No.
What?
Baby.
No, once or twice.
Somebody puts baby in the corner. You can put Mindy in the corner, but you can't put baby.
No,
someone said to me once, did you sit in the front of the room? And I turned all red. Who said that to me? One of you guys. It was Jen. I thought it was Jen. But Jen, I just want to know, did you sit in the front of the room?
In the back of the room playing Hangman, getting busted.
You did? Oh, so I mean, yeah. So I would say law school was the front row, middle seat, but undergrad, like I was often doing a crossword puzzle in the back of the room. So
yeah,
there.
well, had I gone to law school, perhaps I would have sat in the front. No, I didn't go.
It was my trick for paying attention and not falling asleep. Okay, everybody, we're on and we're here to talk about what is a year ago and also like, you know, just the beauty of spring. And I don't know if anyone else is feeling it, but just that sense that there's hope in the air and like people just seem to be a little more alive. And it's, I'm wondering about, so there's an echo now. I think that was Jen. So I'm wondering, first of all, if you live in a place where the weather's always good, do you get this same kind of sense of hope and like really a little bit of jubilation over like seeing crocuses budding? And I don't know, like I often wonder, do you need 4 seasons to experience those moments? But today we're here to talk about when was the moment? When was the moment when you knew this was bigger than you anticipated? And I was a little late to the game. I like to be like, you know, let's not get all overwhelmed. And then I get massively overwhelmed. So I go from like 0 to 1,000. And I remember hearing like people talking from other places about what was going on, like quarantining, having to, like if you were on an airplane, what you had to do in response to that in other countries. And then my son came home from college for spring break. And I kind of said, you might want to bring a few more clothes. So I was kind of starting to feel like it. And he was kind of wondering. And then Jody Podal, who isn't on today, called me up and said, because I have 3 kids living in California, she said, my daughter's college just hinted that the airports might close. And I was like, what does that mean? And I literally texted my kids and said, jump on a plane. I don't care how much it costs. Fortunately, we could say that. I don't care when it is. Fortunately, we could pick them up. Get home. And so they did. They jumped on planes. And Tracy says when Italy shut down and the NBA canceled their season, that was Jen Prose. Yep, Tracy, it's so true.
Tracy, you stole mine. Now I got to think of, you better call me last, Sue, because now I got to think of one. Thank you.
Okay, well, so Tracy, we're going to share Tracy's because I think that was true for a lot of people. Like Italy shut down was like massive. And then when has the NBA ever canceled their season? Like that is just so crazy. Someone probably knows that answer, but I didn't. I don't remember it. Since I cared about the NBA, I don't remember there being a season, no season. Anyway, so yeah, the hearing that big things were shutting down. So I'm going to turn this over to Kamira.
Good morning. I'm going to take the NBA and run with it because we were at the last NBA game when it shut down. We were at the Hawks versus the Knicks game. Vince Carter's last game. He didn't get to do his big retirement thing. We all applauded and gave him what we could then. And then that was it. It was real. And our heads were spinning. We were on the way home trying to figure out what it meant. The beginning was really not a problem because our 2 youngest still live at home. Those 2 and I are introverts and we're homebodies. So telling us to stay home, we were like, okay, I was planning on it anyway. My husband is not. He is the extrovert's extrovert. And we were really worried about him. But he's managed. I spent the beginning trying to make little cozy nooks all over the house. We brought a cousin who was living alone in the suburbs into our bubble. So we had even more people in the house and we just kind of hunkered down together. And then anybody who's living in the Southeast remembers last spring was probably the worst allergy season on record. at the same time as COVID. So those of us who have really bad allergies, if you have bad allergies, you know that there's a numeric scale. If you have 4s and 5s, you literally could not leave your house anyway without really bad breathing. You'd go a few feet and you were, it was like an asthmatic symptom. And it was really scary because that was happening at the same time that we didn't know what was happening with COVID and people couldn't breathe. And it was very, very scary for patients and doctors alike.
Kamira, I have a question for you. So the introvert extrovert story that Susan Cain really highlighted in her book, do you think that after a year, has your husband changed at all? Like, is he going to go running out of the house and be his same pre-COVID?
He has not changed at all. So he has, if you had asked me 2 years ago, how he would behave if we shut down the world and everyone would be inside, I would have bought a plane ticket to my mom and said, "Y'all, see you guys later. You guys stay in the house with him." He has done remarkably well. He gets out. He takes at least a 5-mile walk every day. Exercise was not his thing, so we're all happy to see that. He's really, really trying. Is probably the person who took most advantage of all the little cozy nooks I set up inside and outside the house. So here, you can take your laptop here. And for the first month or so, I was Wi-Fi tech because we didn't have proper Wi-Fi for people to be teaching and going to school and all the things that were happening online in our house. So that kept me busy. But every 6 weeks or so, he and I would have a big blow up because he would do something that I would consider risky. And it's really just his personality. He couldn't help it. He just had to be around people or something and didn't realize what he was doing. So he hasn't changed much. I think we got our first shots on Friday. I think people are going to be really, really tired of him come the end of May when he's fully vaccinated.
Okay, so let's move on to Jessica Port.
Here's the unmute button. Hello. I think there's really two things that kind of stick out in my mind for right at the beginning of COVID. And one of them was actually the very last meeting we had in person for your team. Just because it was early enough that we were all like, is this something we should be concerned about? And I remember Eka had like a thing to disinfect all of our phones. So we're like, all right, let's do that. That's probably what we need to do, right? Because we didn't know any of the information. We knew we knew that it was, scary and bad, but we really didn't know, the extent of it. And then I think it probably wasn't the next day, but within the next couple days, me and my current roommate, but we were not roommates at the time. We're like, all right, on the off chance something happens, let's have one last hurrah. Let's just get burgers. And so we went and we got burgers. And as we were leaving the restaurant, in the car pulling out of the parking lot, I get a call from my mom, just they have shut down all of the restaurants. You are leaving the restaurant and all of them are shutting down as of 5 p.m. And I'm just sitting there, me and my friend just look at each other and we're like, oh, okay, this is bigger than we thought. So I think that was when it clicked. that was it. So I'm gonna pass. Who hasn't gone yet? I'll go to Mindy.
Thanks, Jessica. Kamira, I just have a quick question for you. But again, you're the center today. When you were at that game and people said they shut it down, right? I just told you to leave the building. Were you guys scared? Did you because I remember watching that and thinking, wow, this is real. So were you nervous? I would have been get me out of there.
So it was surreal because at the same time that notices were popping up on people's cell phones, they broadcasted it on the Jumbotron and stopped games. So we're all reading at the same time. And there was 10 seconds of silence and then murmuring. And then, and this is a state-of-the-art new arena and everybody's in there.
There's a lot of people in it.
A lot of people, and so they finished the game. They let us finish the game. It was the last game, so we were almost done. They let us finish. Whereas other games, they didn't begin. They made people leave. on the West Coast and stuff. And they, so Chick-fil-A does this thing that if the opposing team misses a certain amount of foul shots, you get gift cards for free sandwiches. And the biggest thing was, remember, nobody knew protocol then, right? So then they decided they wouldn't hand out these gift cards because they didn't want to expose the staff. And people were confused leaving and really upset that they weren't getting their Chick-fil-A gift card. But everybody was kind of walking around like, deer's caught in headlights because we really didn't know. It literally just happened, and we weren't near TVs, and people were all on their phones.
Shock. That's amazing.
Mm-hmm.
Interesting. For me, it was, I had 3 boys and 2 came home, but my middle guy in Boston said, I'm going to sit it out. I'm going to wait it out. We'll be fine. He was still going into his office, which was fine. And then I can't remember exactly when, but we got a phone call and he said, all right, we're kicked out of our offices. We're done. I'm coming home. And I can distinctly remember that day. It was a 10-hour drive from Boston, him driving home by himself, and made it, he said, in record time because there was no one on the road. He said, he took 90 from Boston to Cleveland. He said, I put it on cruise controls, stayed in the left lane and almost made it the entire way home. So I think and I could distinctly remember the day him walking in the house and kind of doing one of these. And that's when it hit me that, wow, this is going to be for a bit that, all were home. So, and he stayed home until September. So there you go. So that's our story. Eka, how about you?
Hi, good morning. My story is, I think you guys know this one, is we had planned this big trip. My husband and I planned a trip to go visit our siblings. We're going to go to Boston. Then we're going to go out to Seattle. And there was like a hockey game in there. It was like this whole 10-day thing. And that whole thing just cratered. And so then, because we were all pouty about it, and because I was starting to flip out, we decided we were going to go on a day trip to Canada to our favorite winery to buy some wine. And we went into Canada, and as we were coming back at the border, they said, you're getting back to the United States just in the nick of time because the borders are closing. And to think that they were closing the US-Canadian border was just shocking. And we were able to get our wine, and my husband was able to get some bourbon. But then the border hasn't opened since. And that was just such a crazy thing, thinking that, wow, this is the last time that we're going to, for a long time now, because this isn't something you do lightly. It's not like you close it for 3 or 4 days or a couple of weeks. So that was when I knew it was going to be a long haul at that border. So I'm going to send it over to Jen. Hopefully she's come up with something.
There we go. Yeah, usually I do my best thinking under pressure, but that really threw me for a curveball, Tracy. You're still you're in the doghouse with me. You stole it. Just teasing. I am going to share first. Sharon is not here today. My Coffee with Jen and Sharon buddy on Wednesdays, so I get to share hers. So thankfully, she did the thinking for both of us. She said she knew this was. Tracy says, did anyone else call their doctors? Because we did. I was so nervous. Yeah, definitely. There was some of that going on. Yes, and yeah, I forgive you, Tracy. It's okay. Sharon said she knew it was serious when she saw Old Navy had face masks for sale. And I remember that was showing up in my feed constantly. And there were all these pretty patterns. And when I started thinking, oh, those are cute, I was like, oh, this is a shift. This has become a thing. It's being mass produced. We're obviously going to be needing these for a long time. So I agree with Sharon that was a watershed moment. For me, I think the moment I knew that this was really serious was when they closed some of the public services, like public schools, the K-12 schools. That was huge. I was like, okay, this is massive. We've never had anything like this on a scale like this. And also when they closed the libraries. Libraries are the place that are always open. That's where the most vulnerable in our population can always go. And that's when I realized, wow, what are we into here? Because when the libraries close, I mean, they're like the last bastion. So, and they did eventually open back up, but it was just for curbside service. So they haven't been a place that people can go and just be for a year. And that makes me heartsick. But I do feel like there's hope on the horizon. So that's the happy thing. Sue, you want to bring it on home for us?
I don't really have much to add. I'd love for it if people are watching and have something to add, because one of the things I was noticing in our conversations is like how much clarity. I mean, there are things in my lifetime that, everyone who was experiencing the Challenger, for example, I mean, I know where I was standing when I heard it, and I remember thinking it was a joke. And then I remember being overwhelmed with devastation. Like I was so into this school teacher being on board, and it was just such a big deal. And so that must have been around 1980. Was that 83, 84? But like,
I think it was 86.
Okay. So do you remember where you were standing? Do you remember where you were? Right. And like Princess Diana.
I was standing in the lab, in my chemistry lab.
Right. And there are those moments. And, now universally, we have all experienced this, like, kind of like when the NBA shut down. And so it'll just be interesting to see like that first book that comes out retrospectively. Thank you, Sarah. January 29th, 1987. So I clearly didn't remember the year, but I do absolutely remember where I was standing. And it was just so significant. And obviously a year dealing with COVID, and hopefully we're kind of at the end. Unfortunately, Italy, I think, wait, who just shut down again? Italy? Yeah. So hopefully somehow we escape this next round. And hopefully all of you are having the opportunity to get vaccinated in the short term, because it seems like really it's just the opportunities are becoming much more available. So good luck to everybody. Stay safe. Thanks for watching us, and we'll see you next week.